All right. So whatever you're doing today, whether you're about to pick up the phone to call a potential customer, whether you're in the gym wondering what your calendar looks like today, whether you're driving in the car, going to an appointment, or whether you're maybe walking into a boardroom to finalize a contract. Well, right now, maybe you're finalizing that contract on Zoom with everything that's going on. Here's what I want you to think about. And I really want you to think about this on a deeper note. What does it actually take to be a top 1% salesperson in your industry? Okay, the salesperson who makes all of the money, they get any promotion they want. In fact, they turn down promotions they don't like. They have all the respect in the company from management, from ownership. The salesperson who leads by example because they outsell everyone else. Well, my next guest is going to help answer that question for you. And let me give you a small taste of this man's background. He is the creator and owner of Sales Whisperer, a sales training, marketing, and consulting firm that has an emphasis on CRM and email marketing, software sales, support, and optimization. He is, according to his own words, a Southerner by birth. Me too. He combines common sense with his formal training and attention to detail that was pounded into his hard-headed skull during 4 years at the United States Air Force Academy to help professional salespeople, sales managers, business owners, entrepreneurs achieve miraculous growth and do it quickly. Huge. Since 2012, he's been the #1 reseller of the #1 sales and marketing automation software for small businesses. He is the author of the Definite Guide to Infusionsoft. Shoot me, we have Infusionsoft. I got to learn some skills from you. It's more than a big smile.
Come on, man, I don't have to shoot you.
I know, a good idea, and a Twitter account to build a business that lasts. I love that title. He now lives in Southern Cal with his wife of 20 plus years and their 7 kids. Yes, I said 7 kids. I love that. I've got 5. You're beating me, man.
Nice.
With all that being said, let's welcome to the show the sales whisperer himself, Mr. Wes Schaeffer. Wes,
Is this when the pause comes in, or that'd be like afterwards? You'll do it in post-production?
No, I love that, man. You've even got the Air Force colors on today.
I know. Got my Air Force football helmet back there. Man, it's, blue, baby.
I love it. Well, hey, here's the thing that I love, besides college football. I love talking about human behavior and how that applies to being a top sales professional. So I'm excited to have you on here. So let's do this. Let's dive right into your story. Let's give our listeners maybe a feel for your background and really kind of how you arrived at this point in your life where you're one of the elite authorities on sales, on persuasion, on software automation. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and how this started for you? Like, where did you learn all these skills? Was it boot camp? What happened?
Yeah, exactly. They shave your head and they start teaching you how to sell.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, out of the Air Force, you learn people skills, right, in the military and leadership and discipline, but nothing around sales and marketing, entrepreneurship. And I was 27-year-old, had a wife, we had a baby, we had another one on the way we didn't know about, and I left the Air Force and jumped right into commission sales. And it was a dog-eat-dog world. I was a stockbroker. 6 months later, I ended up in a 3-year arbitration with them over a contract dispute. So I was unemployed when my second son was born.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, living in Mobile, Alabama. The only people I knew was my dad and my stepmom.
Right.
No connections. After being on unemployment a couple months, I replied to a classified ad to sell mobile homes.
Really? Okay.
So this is April of 1998.
Okay.
My second son was born, and I went to work selling trailers.
Okay.
For like a $360 a week draw against commission.
Sure. Okay.
And
so this is where it started.
Yeah. I mean, it was 7 days a week. I made exactly $100,000 from 1998 to 1999 that summer.
Sure.
So in those 12 months.
Yeah.
So it's about $145,000 a day.
Sure.
Today's dollars. I was made a GM in 15 months.
Yeah.
Then that company went bankrupt. So as soon as things were teed up, my manager in Mobile, Alabama in 1998-99 with 6 salespeople, I made almost $500,000.
Wow. Okay, great.
There's so much money. I mean,
Sure.
there's so many ways to make money, right? We don't look, but that taught me that I had what it took to make it in sales.
Yeah.
I got into high tech for several years, right at the peak of the dot-com bubble.
Yeah.
And just that chaos taught me that even in bad times I could sell. And I'm like, if it's going to be this chaotic working for someone, it's like, it won't be any less chaotic working for myself. So 2006, I bought the domain name. I trademarked it a couple of years later.
Okay.
I've been getting after it ever since.
I love it. Now, hey, and let's dive right into this. So I was on your website earlier. Tell us a little bit more about your book, because I know you've got 3 different books now. It takes more than a big smile, a good idea, and a Twitter account to build a business that lasts. Who did you write that book for, and really why?
Well, I'm always just fed up with people selling the magic pills and the easy button, and you just need a Twitter account, right? Just get on social media and you'll just make all this money. And it's like, yeah, that was true maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember when Facebook's smart, man. They're like drug dealers. Like the first one's free, right? Oh, you got to pay for the next one.
Sure.
You remember when pages were just easy, right? And then literally in about a 90-day period, they went from about an 80 or 90% distribution or coverage to like single digits. People went out of business.
5%,
overnight.
yeah.
And so it's just stop looking for the easy button. You can always make a quick buck doing something, but that quick buck, that method goes away.
Sure.
And then you got to reinvent yourself. It's like, just do things right from the beginning.
Yeah.
You'll never have to worry about hummingbird or whatever these penguin. You don't have to worry about any of these things because you didn't game the system. These updates came out. I built my own website. I've written everything on it. And these updates would come out. People are like, are you freaking out? It's like, no, nope. My traffic's up.
Yeah.
Because I did it right.
My business is good. You had a solid foundation. Now let's talk a little bit about what you said a second ago. You got out of the Air Force. You kind of got in straight commission. You got thrown in there. In your mind, why is it so important for someone to have the ability to be able to sell in today's competitive world?
Well, everything's sales.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't realize. Like they say in poker, if you look around and you don't know who the chump is, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can say, well, I don't choose to play poker. I don't choose to be in sales. It doesn't matter if you choose it or not.
Yeah.
Okay. You could be in HR, marketing, whatever. Well, your peers, they want to get ahead. They're going to work the system. They're going to play favorites. They're going to do whatever. So, and I'm not saying you have to play favorites, whatever, but you need to understand that you're in the game.
Yeah.
That is the game of life. And so when you walk into a restaurant, right? How the ambiance, the lobby, they make you take a seat it's all sales.
Yeah. Everything is sold.
Everything, you go on a date, tomorrow is my 25th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
Right. It was a sale. And I tell people, to make any sale, you must make every sale.
Yeah.
So before I met my wife at a country bar in San Bernardino, California.
Yeah.
Right. And it was, 35 minutes from where I lived.
Yeah.
But, before then I had to wash my clothes, I had to shower, put on deodorant, put on cologne, new cologne, not old cologne, not too much cologne. Right. How I approached her was part of the sale.
Sure.
Okay. How I danced was part of the sale. How I asked her to dance again. How I asked for her phone number. Each one of those were little yeses.
Yeah. You look at it, everybody out there, doesn't matter if you're in a sales job or you get commission or you just make a salary. Everybody is out there every single day trying to persuade, influence, or convince other. Even if you're not getting paid, like you said, a commission, you're still out there trying to persuade and move others. Like if you're an entrepreneur, for example, who's trying to get your employees to catch the vision of your business where you want to take it, you're trying to persuade, influence, you're trying to move others, right? If you're an attorney who's trying to convince a judge that your client is innocent, you're trying to persuade and move and convince others, right? Even if you're an employee who's trying to convince your owner to give you a pay raise, you're trying to persuade, influence. Look at politics going on right now. We have the presidential stuff. If you're a politician who's trying to convince people to vote for you, you're trying to persuade, influence, and convince others. So it doesn't matter what you sell. You have to learn those skills if you want to succeed in life. Yep. I love that. Now, let's move into this. What do you feel? You train a lot of salespeople, a lot of organizations. What do you feel, or maybe a few of the biggest mistakes that you see salespeople make in 2020?
Some of it's not their fault, but then again, everything's your fault, right? So you've got to take responsibility.
Sure.
But very few salespeople have really had sales training. They typically have had product training, right? You know, they're like, go out and sell this pen. It's silver and blue, and it pulls out, and it's easy to replace, and it's got a little stylus, and it weighs, 12.6 grams, whatever. Go sell it. Okay, so they know all about the weight and the material it's made out of, and it's carbon neutral, whatever. Yeah. But why should I buy it?
Yeah, that's product pushing.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but their brains are filled with the product knowledge because the marketing department does the training, or the operations department does the training. Sales management, they just want to know what your pipeline is and want to know your numbers.
Right.
Okay, and so you go out there, it doesn't feel right, but you don't know any different, so you just do what they say instead of peeling it back and digging in and trying to figure out, how do I really sell?
Yeah.
Who do I ask for? Why would they care? Why would the CEO of a company care about this pen versus the CFO versus the chief marketing officer versus whatever? And so there's going to be different approaches for each of those people. Yeah. So do you care enough to design your messaging, your processes, your scripting? Do you care enough to tailor it to the people you're speaking to? And most don't. Well, it's not my job. My company's supposed to give me the lead. My company's supposed to give me the training. And Glenn Ross, right? Yeah. These leads suck, So.
Well, here's a suggestion to all of our listeners, and I'm sure you see this. Like, I have a few friends that are very successful business owners. They both own Fortune 1000 companies, and their hiring department, their HR, one of the biggest questions, because they're very sales-driven organizations, which is the way it should be, okay? One of the biggest questions they ask a new salesperson looking to hire is, how much money did you personally spend on sales training in the last 12 months to learn more advanced skills? Now, if they say, I didn't spend any money, but my company bought training, they'll never get hired. If they said, I spent X amount of dollars myself personally, they're going to get hired 9 times out of 10, because that in their mind is, this is a person who has taken personal responsibility to learn more advanced skills. If your company is buying your training and you're not investing in training to learn those advanced skills from the right people, because there's a lot of stuff that works against human behavior out in the market for sure, you're never going to go anywhere in sales for sure. What's another thing you see? So product pushing is a big problem. What's another mistake you see people doing?
Salespeople turn into beggars, right? So we're recording this right at the end of Q3, right? And so they don't know their numbers. They don't truly know how to sell. So, but eventually, end of the month, especially into the quarter, somewhere around 3 weeks left, so the first week of September, you're starting to look around and go, oh man, I'm in trouble. And so survival mode kicks in. And you don't smile and dial. You probably frown and dial. And you start cutting deals. You start making promises. You sharpen your pencil, right? So now you're literally begging. And so it creates this downward spiral. You now are grooming your prospects to expect if they just wait till the end of the month, end of the quarter, they're going to get a better deal.
Yeah, you become commoditized.
They know they can push you around. And then it's this self-defeating cycle, right? So then you go back to your boss, you're like, see, our stuff's too expensive. If we would just cut the setup costs, if we had a better warranty, better delivery, expedited, like, no, dude, it's your sell at top dollar.
It's your sales ability, right? Like in our day and age, and I think you hit it right on the head a second ago with product pushing. Like you said, most companies and most salespeople are taught to be product pushers, right? So they're taught, ask a few generic questions about their problems. Mr. Jones, what keeps you awake at night? Or what are 2 problems that you have? Or what solution are you looking for? Just surface level questions, right? Surface level answers. And then we're taught to do what? Pitch, give our pitch, right? It's like taking a bucket of mud, talking about the features and benefits, about how we have the best this and the best that, and which, by the way, every salesperson says, right? How many salespeople have tried to sell you something in the last year that said their product was fifth best in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It goes one area or the other, right? So that's like taking a bucket of mud and like throwing it up against the wall, hoping and praying that something we're going to say is going to stick, right? So in our day and age, you now have to be even better at what we call problem finding. And that means asking the right questions, like you talk about, that uncover challenges and problems your prospect might not even know they have.
Yep.
Right? And they start to view you differently, more of an authority figure rather than commoditizing you and pushing you to the side where they treat all the other salespeople who are just trying to sell them something. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the best salespeople, it's hurt and rescue.
Yeah.
We've got to ask the question, because look, the reality is if our prospects knew the pain that they were in, if they knew the ramifications of not addressing it, they would have already addressed it. You wouldn't be talking.
Yeah.
Example I always use is doctors, right? You're walking around every day. I mean, people drop dead of a heart attack, or at least have a heart attack, right? And then it's 911, it's paramedics, it's emergency surgery, but what if the doctor just knew? What if our fancy Apple Watches were just sending things back and the doctor called and said, we're seeing something, it's quite alarming. I recommend you put everything down and drive immediately to the hospital.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And if it's a trusted source, it's your doctor, they have a valid reason.
Yeah.
It would get your attention, but they don't have that. So they're like, so you have to start asking questions. Hey, are you noticing problems sleeping? Are you waking up a lot? Do you need to rest just climbing a flight of stairs? Do you have problems picking up the kids, doing groceries? Yes, as a matter of fact, after you eat, you're very tired, blah, blah. Is this concerning, doctor?
Sure.
It may be nothing, but I'm seeing a lot of symptoms. I think you should come in.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay.
So by asking questions they can't answer, it puts it, and the doctor's not saying, I have a degree from Harvard, you should come see me.
Right. Who cares?
Right.
Okay.
I have a General Electric, a Westinghouse MRI machine. You should come really see me. And I don't care about any of that. I care about me.
They're problem finders and problem solvers, right? You just said it right there. You couldn't have said anything more perfect. Without helping them uncover their own problems in their own mind from your questioning ability, it's impossible for them to buy from you so you can even solve their problems. It's so true. Now, I wanted to ask you this. This is an important question. How can people start to build their sales skills if they're just like brand new? Like, what's the first step they need to do?
You need to understand your number one job is to prospect.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not selling, believe it or not. It's not negotiating. It's not creating proposals. It's prospecting, because you and I, we can't control what the other person does. Okay. But we can control what we eat tonight for dinner, what we drink tonight. Do we get a good night's sleep? Do we get up, get to the gym, get to the office early, and get going? What are you putting yourself in front of enough qualified people?
Yeah.
Okay. And so understand your job is to prospect. And then even on the qualification side, really our job is to sort, sift, and separate.
Sure.
Okay. We're disqualifying prospects.
Why is disqualifying so important in your mind?
Well, people always say, oh, everyone's a prospect for our stuff. I'm like, okay, the human body's like 60% water. If you go 3 days without water, you die. Yeah. Okay, so everybody's a prospect for bottled water service.
Sure.
No, they're not. Yeah. Well, but everybody needs water. But are they really willing to pay it? So you need to dig in and say, okay, who's most likely to pay for bottled water? Yeah. Probably homeowners, but then again, somebody in an apartment, they might. Maybe it's a higher end apartment. Maybe it's penthouses and townhomes. And maybe it's, those that drive have a home worth more than $500,000. They have children. They have a foreign car. You start stacking the odds in your favor. Okay, these people are probably more likely. So I really don't want to sell. I really don't want to get haggle. I want to sort, sift, and separate.
Well, I think it's so true, because you always hear that saying like, oh, I could sell ice to an Eskimo. That is so it's like 150 years old, mojo that just has no relevance. Like, no interest does not mean that they're interested, right? Like that stuff just psychologically doesn't make any sense, right? Buyers are liars. Well, they only lie to you because of the way you're communicating to them has caused them to shut down, not want to engage with you and to lie to you to get rid of you. That's why they're lying, because of your selling ability. That's why they lie.
Yep.
You know, these old myths, we have to really get rid of them and start thinking like, okay, the reason why they didn't buy is because there's something I said or some questions I didn't ask that triggered them to find out problems maybe they didn't think they have, where they felt like my price of my product or service would get them the results that they want. So if they feel like, you know what, if your price for your product or service is $100,000, but it's going to make me an extra $20 million, then it looks cheap. But if they're like, your price is this, but I don't know if you can get me the results, then your price just looks like an expense. It's a major difference. Now, here's what I want to talk to you about today. I was watching on a video the other day. You talk a lot about the sales agenda technique to lock down appointments and stay in control of the process. Tell us a little bit more about what that means and actually how it works.
Well, prospects they're smart, right? I think it was 2001. I went to a 2-day negotiation class.
Yeah.
And I started to see things from the buyer's perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. Buyers go to buying classes. They go to negotiation classes. And now with the internet and social media, they have more and more access, more than ever. So they have a lot more control.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have a sales process, then you're just a dancing chicken, right? You're a walking, talking brochure. Mm-hmm. And so the prospect is accustomed to being in charge, being in control, asking all the questions. And so if you don't turn those tables around, then you're just at the whim of the buyer.
Yeah. You're winging it.
You're winging it, and you may be prepared to a degree, but if the prospect is setting things up, you see it all the time. Prospects, they have a meeting, they go back to the office, the boss says, how'd it go? Oh, it went well. What are the next steps? They said they get back to me.
They're going to call me back in a week.
Like, really? That's the outcome, right? So, in the agenda, and again, it's the disqualifying process.
Yeah.
I'm talking to the prospect, and when I'm making calls, I'm not selling, right? The sale is to see if they qualify for a meeting.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Do they have a need that maybe I can fulfill?
Yeah.
And so I push for the meeting. But it's the subtle art within the science on how to, you need to find out, do they have pain? Do they have authority? Right? Is it a timely need?
Sure.
So in this agenda, it's like, hey, Joe, thanks for being, willing to meet, in order to make the best use of our time. Would it make sense if we set a quick agenda for our time together next week? The hard charging drivers would be like, okay. And then the analytical types, which are about half of your prospects, are going to love it.
Yeah.
What? An agenda? I would absolutely love to have an agenda.
Sure.
It's like, well, look, ultimately the main reason we're even meeting is to see if there's a fit. Because let's be honest, there's a whole lot of people that do what I do. You can flick a switch, you can buy things from anywhere, but so we're really looking to see, is there chemistry, right? Do we like one another? Do we trust one another? I have 2 simple ground rules. We're open and honest with each other, and either of us can end the meeting at any time for any reason. Yeah. So if you don't like what I'm wearing, you don't like my computer, you don't whatever, end the meeting. If I hear something, though, that is a showstopper, there's no reason for us to meet for 30 minutes or an hour if we know it's just not going to work. Is that fair?
You're instead of you focusing on making the sale, you're instead focusing on whether there's a sale to be made in the first place. That's what you're doing. I love that.
Oh, yeah. I've had people, I was using this for many years when I was still in corporate America. And I had a guy, I was up at Redlands Hospital, actually. We sold computer systems to the IT department. So I'd have the CIO, I'd have the director, I'd have like the server room guys and the client side. They're all in there. And I passed this agenda around. And when I got to that one point, either of us can end the meeting at any time. This guy literally, he's leaning back. Unfolds his arm. He leans and he actually picks up the paper.
Yeah.
Because I bring a printed copy of the agenda.
Yeah.
And he leans forward and looks. I'm like, all right, we're in. And it just changed the dynamic of that meeting. And I tell him, say, look, I'm going to show up. I'm going to have more questions for you than you ever thought possible. You may want to jot down a few for me.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And at the end, when we're done, we'll decide what the next steps are, even if there are no next steps.
Yeah, it's more of a dialogue. It's more of a conversation because you're there to see if what they're doing, if you could actually even help them solve that problem, right? So they
Exactly.
treat you, like you said, as an expert or more of a trusted authority rather than just another salesperson who's there trying to stuff their solution down their throat. That's a
Yep.
completely different result.
I don't show up with brochures. I don't show up with a demo.
Yeah.
I show up with a notebook and a pen.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love
But
that.
I told them, right, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So when I show up, I review the agenda. I'm like, okay, well, go ahead and start. Like, where are we now? What's going on?
Yeah.
So I've already set the tone.
Yeah. You're finding out what their situation even is.
If you pass out brochures at the beginning, you're done. They're just going to thumb through the brochure, not listen to you. You're done. They're going to start asking questions. Yeah, page 7. What does this mean? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. All you're doing is just throwing out your solution without diagnosing them first to see if you can even help.
You're done.
While we're on this subject of question, in your mind, what's a good question a rep can ask to really build urgency for them to take action now rather than staying in the status quo?
Well, I don't know if I have an exact one. Ultimately, my goal is to ask a question that they can't answer. Okay. I want them going, oh, wow, I haven't really thought about that. Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, no one's really asked me that. If you're doing that, you're on the right track.
Why is that? Tell our listeners why psychologically, what does that do to the buyer?
Well, just like the doctor analogy with your heart, hey, are you winded when you go upstairs? Or when they ask things that you haven't answered and you haven't even thought, you're like, wow, that really has been happening.
Yeah.
Have I been ignoring a big problem? The fact that you're smart enough to ask a question that they haven't even considered, they just psychologically know that you know something they don't know.
That you're an expert. That's exactly what it does. Yeah. Psychologically, working with human behavior, your questioning ability gets them to question their way of thinking that's allowed them to stay in the situation that they might not even known they were in.
Yep.
I love that.
But to go back, like on the timing, on my initial conversation, when I'm pushing for a meeting, I'm putting a time frame on it already. So, we go through the different problems and I don't suppose any of these are a critical issue. I don't suppose any of these are of a priority for you this quarter, are they?
Yeah.
So I'm turning it around. I'm asking. I'm assuming it's not a deal.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let them go.
You're detached.
Yeah, detachment is a good word, right? And I'll let them go. Oh hell yeah! This is a big not this quarter. We got to solve it this month.
You're getting them to pull you in rather than you pushing and they push back. So what you're doing, and I love that, is you're using questions, right, that work with human behavior, that show you're detached from the expectations of making the sale. You're there instead to see if you can help them, right? And you're getting them to pull you in. Whereas most salespeople have learned traditional sales techniques, hence closers or losers, that actually trigger sales resistance. So when they say certain things or they assume the sale, especially if it's in more of a complex selling environment, when they assume the sale, it triggers resistance and people push back. And then you start pushing and playing the chase game, and what an ugly way to sell. So hard.
Yep, I know.
All right, so let's do this. Let's talk about your book, because you talk a lot about the sales whisperer's way. And I want to know about that because I was reading into it. I'm like, what does he mean by the sales whisperer's way? Tell us more about what that means.
Well, we've been talking about it, right? It's disqualifying. It's being detached. It's leading with questions. It's asking questions they can't answer.
Yeah.
It's having a process, a process for everything.
Yeah.
So you're not winging it. You're not a beggar, but you understand your value. I don't care if you're selling to Elon Musk, for your specific solution, if he agreed to a meeting, it's because you know something he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right. So stand your ground, look them eye to eye. And understand, our job as salespeople, we have to meet the prospects where they are.
Yeah.
And be willing and able to shift, to change the focus, to change the order of things, depending on who's in the room, where they are in the buying cycle. But still, you must negotiate from a position of strength.
Yeah.
you've got to own the room. I remember I had a job for a short time as a recruiter, and I was on the business side. I would recruit the companies. I'd call in the companies to come to a conference, and other guys worked with the candidates.
Yeah.
And this guy from Rubbermaid, he was a former Army veteran, and he talked about, he said, I'm looking for somebody with this room-filling presence. Right? And it was just such a great description. This was 2000, so 20 years. That's just hung in my head, right? Yeah. You have to own the room.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, then you're at a deficit. And so, learn to own the room.
How do you own the room? Like in your mind, what do you do? Like what's an important question that every salesperson should ask if they're, let's say in a boardroom, let's say that you're talking to 5 or 6 decision makers, right? So as you know, like, especially if you're selling a complex selling environment, the average organization is going to have about 6 to 8 decision makers, sometimes more. There's sometimes even more. It just depends on what you're doing. What's a really good question that every salesperson can ask in that room to really get them to kind of buy in and own that room?
Well, it's just like before. It goes back to the setup, right? Having an agenda, because there's not a magic question.
Yeah.
And if you have 6 people in there, like I was in high tech, I was selling to Google. One time we had, I forget now, it's been a little while. It was like 9 people at the table and representing 7 countries.
Okay, right.
Okay. So the company I was with was from Canada, right? And I'm at Google. They had people, Asians, Indians, just all these people. English was a second language, hard accent. So tough to really connect quickly, at least, right? Over time, go to lunch, get to know each other. But that's a lot of diversity.
It is.
Right. And there's not just one thing that's going to win all of them over, but in that very technical setting, having an agenda, showing that you're in control. Because again, we have to meet them where they are. If I'm showing up, meeting a business owner, and we've already talked a little bit, maybe we've golfed before, had some beers, okay, you can yuck it up. You can have some fun. You can be less formal. In that very structured, you need to understand we have to adjust how we sell to match how they buy.
I agree.
But having that agenda, going in a professional manner, right? I show up early. I lay things out. I show that this ain't my first rodeo. And dude, I was way in over my head. I was the sales, but I had like 2 engineers come in. I mean, I'm basically just, I'm like a waiter, right? I'm like, I can tell some coffee, some snacks, and I'll run out of the snack bars everywhere in Google, right? Like,
right. I
could answer like 2 out of 100 questions a day. I mean, this was like bleeding edge technology, PhDs. Sure. I mean, but I still, it was my meeting.
Yeah.
Right. It was my sale. So even though I knew deep down, I couldn't really answer their questions. Yeah. I still own the room, right? I still control the pace. If somebody starts to get, angry, I had to diffuse the situation. If they're trying to railroad things, I've got to be able to shift the focus. Yeah. When my guys are yammering, going on too long,
talking about the product,
prep them ahead of time. We got knockoff clauses, right? Like code words to say, basically, shut up. Right? You're going off a deep end. You're going into things that don't matter. You're talking about the roadmap 2 years from now, but I got to make this sale this month. Yeah, so exactly. Shut your mouth, right? So, but all that is prepared ahead of time.
Yeah.
So that's, it's a long answer to the question. I mean, there's not one. But
I love your agenda, because you lay out the agenda and, Mr. Prospect, today what we can do is, we went over XYZ problems that you talked with us about in the last meeting and some of the challenges and your objectives of where you're wanting to go X, Y, Z, and Z. And I laid out an agenda of what we can cover today. And maybe they've got it in front of that. But from your perspective, out of these things we've already talked about, what's the most important thing that you'd like to cover today so that we could focus more on you and what you might be looking for? And so it's like you're putting the power back into them where they feel that, but who has the real power?
Right.
You do. You have control of that room. You've given it to them, but now you're the facilitator and you're basically controlling that process, but you're making them feel like they're in control. That's where you want to be. I love that. Now, one other question I wanted to ask you. How do you fine tune your craft? So let's say you start getting really good. How do you get even better? How do you improve?
Never stop.
Mm.
You know, I'm leaving this afternoon for our anniversary, going out for a few days. But
Yeah.
any trip I ever go on, I have more books than underwear.
I love that.
You know,
More books than underwear. You got to trademark that, man.
And that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
I'm always learning.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm probably a little boring, right? Guys are at the gym listening to music.
Yeah.
I'm listening to Zig Ziglar. I'm listening to an audio book. I'm listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
You know, it's even though I may have heard them before, you know, it takes a long time. I remember I was kind of hung up on selling too much at the end of a conference or an event, because like I never wanted people to think it was a bait and switch.
Sure.
Right? It's like, hey man, they paid. I'm just going to give them my all. But I remember listening to Zig. He's like,
yeah,
you've got to buy my cassettes.
Yeah.
You know, he says, we're here for a couple of hours, even here for a whole day. We'll move the needle a little bit. It's like, you're going to forget 90% of what we covered within a month.
Yeah.
Says,
what is it saying? You can't teach a kid how to ride a bike at a seminar?
Yeah, David Sandler. Yeah. But he's like, you need to be listening to these until you're finishing my sentences. Then it becomes self-talk.
Yeah.
You know, and it's true. So yeah, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to give you a bunch of good stuff, you know, but I've got to send you away with the assets and the tools to keep sharpening your own axe. So you gotta commit to always learn. I mean, look at doctors, teachers, engineers, attorneys, whatever. They have continuing education.
Athletes.
Yeah. It's all continuing education.
Yeah.
There's always somebody coming up that wants to knock you off,
100%.
take away that trophy.
That's why the greats like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, all those greats, you know, football player greats, Tom Brady, always getting better, never resting on royals. You know, I always call it like the Heisman Trophy winner, you know, from high school. Like, oh, you know, back in high school, I scored 6 touchdowns and I did this and that. Well, you're 45 now. Like, who cares?
Oh.
Nobody cares about what you did your senior year in high school. It's what are you doing for me now? Right? It's the NFL. Like, what are you doing for me now? Or we're going to cut you from the team. You're not going to play. And, you know, a good mentor of mine always taught that a couple of things, you know, is training something that you did or is training something that you do, right? Something you do. And, you know, really when you're driving around, like you talked about, instead of listening to your, you know, favorite hits of 2020, how much money is that going to make you? Why not listen to more advanced training that's going to improve your skills? You call that University on Wheels. It's right there for you. I love that. Wes, can't thank you enough for being on the show. Do you have any final advice or thoughts for our listeners?
Keep listening, keep growing.
Yeah.
You know, it's on the one hand, it's hard, right? And on the other hand, it's good that it's hard because competition won't put forth the effort. They're eventually they're going to think they've made it to the top and they're going to rest. And that's when you're going to leapfrog them, you know, so steady as she goes.
I love it. Hey, where can our listeners learn more about you and your training? How can they get involved there?
Everything is at thesaleswhisperer.com.
Thesaleswhisperer.com.
It's all there. The books, the agenda, find me on social media. It's all there.
Yeah. So I want everybody to go to saleswhisperer.com. You know, opt into Wes's stuff, get some books, start learning more advanced skills, period. If you want to start making more money this week, this month, this quarter, this year, 100%. Wes, thank you for being on. That was awesome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Now, if you're serious about joining the top 1%, I mean the top 1%, and you want to experience more training content just like this, click the links right over there. Right over there, they're exactly what you need to see next. You see, I release new episodes featuring top salespeople and sales authorities, multiple 6-figure, high 6-figure, even 7-figure earners. And if you're new here, do yourself a favor and smash that subscribe button right below, and join our new Facebook group, Sales Revolution. You see, it's free, and there's a link in the description below just for you. We put it there for you. Finally, I make posts on Facebook and Instagram each and every day with more tips and training. So be sure and follow me and turn on your notifications. So make a comment in the first 7 minutes to any of my latest posts, share this episode, and there's a very real chance that you're gonna win some killer prizes. And here's the thing, don't sit on the sidelines. Don't be like everyone else. Get into the game. Join the sales revolution. Stay active, get involved, learn the right skills, and we will show you how to take your life and income to a level that most only dream about.